What's going on, everybody, and welcome into the Point After with Mitch Kaiser. I'm your host, Mitch Kaiser. We are in the middle of the week here. Got a fun episode for you guys today. As you can see on your screen, you see the March Madness bracket, the NCAA tournament bracket right there in front of us, which starts tomorrow. Cannot wait for that. One of my favorite weeks of the year. Obviously, I know this is a football podcast, but I'm sure you guys have caught on that I love basketball by now and just kind of enjoy all sports. So with March Madness this week, I wanted to do a little fun episode today. Something I've wanted to do in the past, but I never had my own podcast to do this on. So I've always wanted to do a March Madness bracket, but if you were picking them as college football teams. So it's basically a college football bracketology for next season based on the bracket we currently have. So I know that's like probably a waste of your time if you're not interested in watching. I totally get it. More of just a fun hypothetical situation, just kind of to rank these players based on the teams we have in this bracket. And I know that not all these teams have football programs. A lot of them are FCS schools or just don't even have football teams and just basketball programs to begin with. But some of the big hitters and are definitely on there. Some of the big college football programs are still on there. So want to just have a fun hypothetical situation. Again, this episode might not be for you, might not be for everyone, but if you just if you love talking ball, if you love March Madness and you love college football, this might be the episode for you. Just kind of a mix here of some college football analysis, looking ahead at teams next season. Now, let me preface that this is for 2026 college football season, so we're not picking this based on what happened this previous season, because then it would be, Indiana didn't even make it. Miami's I think a 7 seed, so like they would obviously have to go to the championship game if that were the case, but we're not doing that. We're doing this for next season. So based on the recent transfer portal additions, the recent recruiting classes, and the recent change of rosters, this is looking ahead at college football next season. And basically it's just a fun little prediction of who I think will end up in the Final Four if this were a college football bracket for next season. So again, just a fun episode. We're going to get back on track with draft prospect rankings starting on Friday, a couple days. So going to do O-line rankings of that. So we'll get back into the cadence of the position rankings on the side with Mock Draft Mondays. So, but with March Madness this week, beginning tomorrow, I just wanted to do this little fun episode here for you guys. So hope you guys enjoy. So, all right, without further ado, let's get started now. So, opening the first bracket here, Duke. So Duke is coming off an ACC championship. So Duke just won the ACC. They would obviously beat Siena. I don't even know if Siena has a football team, but Duke would be moving on. They obviously lost Darren Mensah to Miami in the portal, but have a lot of other strong additions and overall just a better team. So the season they just had, the program they've built the past few years, Duke has become a formidable foe in college football, not just basketball. So Duke would be moving on. This one would actually be a fun game. A couple of years ago, Ohio State versus TCU. So a couple of years ago, that would have been a decent national championship game. But we saw the OSU-Georgia game, and then TCU got blown out by Georgia in the following championship game, 65-7. So I would take the Buckeyes in this one for next season. TCU's not what they were, obviously coming off an average season with 8-4 with Josh Hoover as a quarterback, but they lost Hoover, so lost a lot in the portal. They're not going to beat Julian Sayin. They're not going to beat Jeremiah Smith. So Ohio State would obviously win that game. They would probably be the 1 seed if we were actually ranking this on football. So, all right. 5 versus 12, St. John's versus Northern Iowa here. Now, I don't think St. John's has a football program, so by default there, Northern Iowa wins. They've had a couple NFL players in the past. Trevor Penning currently in the NFL and the Chargers, and then Kurt Warner went there. So Kurt Warner, famous quarterback, Super Bowl champion quarterback, Kurt Warner is played at Northern Iowa. So he would be, there you go. Northern Iowa wins. Kansas versus California Baptist. Kansas isn't much of a football program, but they've been in past few years, they've been a lot better. This will be the first year they don't have Jalen Daniels, though, at the quarterback. So I know it's still a QB battle on their hands, but overall, Kansas has become competitive enough as a football program. They're making bowl games every year. And they could be competing for playoffs in years future. So I'm very hot. Next game, Louisville versus South Florida. So both these teams are pretty decent in football. South Florida's been a fun American school with Byron Brown, but they obviously lost Alex Golish to Auburn. So I don't think South Florida will be as good. Louisville is a team I'm super high on, though. If you guys heard my way too early rankings a few weeks ago, Louisville was 15th in those rankings. So I'm going with the Louisville Cardinals. I love Isaac Brown. I love Jeff Brown. I think Brown's one of the best running backs in the country, and I'm very excited to see what Lincoln Keenholz can do. Quarterback transfer coming over from Ohio State. He's got some elite physical tools, man. So if he can really get that offense humming, Louisville can absolutely win that ACC and absolutely make the playoffs. So they'll probably be going far in this bracket. So just have heads up. Man, Michigan State versus North Dakota State. I don't think Spartan fans are going to love this one, but you have to go with North Dakota State, the FCS dominant powerhouse here. They would absolutely beat Michigan State next year in football if they played in a football game. I know that's different levels of competition, but North Dakota State dominates FCS for years. Michigan State has won like 3 games in the FBS for the past few seasons in a row. So we're going with North Dakota State there. They've got some great quarterbacks come out of the year. Obviously, we know Carson Wentz. We know what happened with Trey Lance, but Cole Payton is the newest one currently in the draft process, so he won't be there next year. However, I would still take them to beat Michigan State in a football game. This is a fun one now. UCLA versus Central Florida. So UCLA last year was pretty bad, and we all know what happened. The coach got fired midway through, and they just brought in Bob Chesney. And they're bringing over a ton of James Madison transfers. Ton of transfers from James Madison. Scott Frost is still at Central Florida. They're going to be average. I think they'll probably just be kind of like a bowl game team every season. But I am trusting what Bob Chesney's bringing over from James Madison. I'm going UCLA in that one. UConn versus Furman. So last season was like the first time I can remember that UConn's had a good football team. However, they're losing both Joe Fanano and Skylar Bell, wide receiver. However, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I don't know much about Furman's football program, but I think UConn can beat them in the FBS. They won 9 games last season, so that's no joke. 9 games. Yeah. All right, we're just going to do region by region here, make it easy. Just keep looking at the same region here. So going back to Ohio State versus Duke. This could be a fun football game that Duke might compete for the first quarter, first half maybe, but Ohio State will pull away and end up winning by 3 touchdowns, I would imagine. Julian Sayin gets it going in the second half, takes down Duke. Kansas versus Northern Iowa. Now, Northern Iowa could probably compete with a team like Kansas, and this could probably be a good game. However, I just think Kansas has built enough of a program, and they got the bigger guys up front that Northern Iowa is going to have. I'm going Jayhawks in that. This is a fun one too. Now, North Dakota State versus Louisville would be a better game than the Michigan State one. I think Louisville would win because I do believe in Keenholz. I do believe in what Jeff Brown's building. I ultimately might have them in my playoffs, so I can't have them losing to an FCS school. But North Dakota State would put up a fight. That would be a close one. That could come down to the wire. All right, UConn versus UCLA here. It's another tough one because we don't know. UCLA is going to be one of the most improved teams in the country. We just don't know how many more games they'll win. UConn could regress a lot from one of their best seasons. I'm going with the Bruins here because I just can't. I don't think UConn can replicate that success in a football season back-to-back years. It's just maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I think UCLA is going to be one of the most improved teams in the country. All right. Kansas versus Ohio State. Not much to say on there. Ohio State gets it done. Julian Sayin leads the Buckeyes to victory over the Jayhawks in a high-scoring affair. Louisville and UCLA. This is where UCLA's magical run ends. The Louisville Cardinals set up a great quarterback battle in the Elite Eight of former teammates Lincoln Keenholz and Julian Sayin. Now, everybody said Keenholz gave Sayin a legitimate battle in the quarterback room. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how real that is. I imagine you're going to say that about your guy no matter what. Ryan Day speaks the world of Lincoln Keynotes. He speaks so highly of him and his abilities, and he made it sound like he really pushed Julian Sayin to the final end of when they needed to make a quarterback decision before week 1 in the Texas game. And Sayin obviously won the job, but Keynotes is no slouch, man, and that's why I think he's going to do really well at Louisville. I think he is going to tear it up. However, there's a reason he's not starting over Sayin. Julian Sayin might be the best returning quarterback in the country. I can't take Louisville to beat them in a game, but it would be a good one. If Louisville and Ohio State played in the college football playoff next year, that could be an epic game. And I would take the Buckeyes in a shootout, but I do think Keenholz would have some extra motivation and a chip on his shoulder in that game to go out there and spin it and put up some points. Buckeyes would win, though. Their defense would ultimately be too much, and Jeremiah Smith would be too much for Louisville's corners. But that'd be a good game. I mean, some dominant defensive lines there. You got Clev Lubin, one of the best pass rushers in the country, returning for Louisville. And we know OSU is always going to reload with dudes up front. So coming out of the East region, no surprise, the Ohio State Buckeyes in football bracketology. All right, let's go to the West region now. Arizona versus Long Island. Noah Fafita getting it done. Again, they had one of the biggest turnarounds in the country from 2024 to 2025. Well, they won 3 games in 24 and won 10 games in 2025. So just amazing turnaround for them. And Brent Brennan, the coach, and Fafita was night and day from a season ago. I almost wonder if he was overthinking, like throwing to Tet too much and like only trying to throw the ball to Tet McMillan. So never know on that. That's always tough. But either way, they got it going. They got their offense rolling, and they're going to be in prime position to compete for a Big 12 championship next year. You cannot take Arizona lightly. They will absolutely be one of the top 4 teams in the Big 12. So they're moving on, and they could go far in this tournament. I'm going to go Villanova over Utah State in the 8-9. I know Utah State's had some play. This one's tough. All right. Because Jordan Love went to Utah State, right? Villanova's like a really good FCS football school. That's the thing. That's why this is tough. Utah State's in the Mountain West. I think I'm going Utah State just because the FBS versus FCS, but that would be a close game. That would be a game I wouldn't be shocked if Villanova won that. But Wisconsin versus High Point. I really want to pick Wisconsin to lose because they would absolutely be the team to lose first round in a March Madness college football playoff bracket because they would just score no points. Like Luke Fickell would just not put up any points in the game. But I also don't think they would allow any points to a team like High Point. So unfortunately, I have to take Wisconsin Badgers in that one, but I'm not enthusiastic about doing it. Oh, man, this is a fun one. Wow. Hawaii versus Arkansas is a fun one now because you got Hawaii might represent the group of 5 in the college football playoff next season. They are setting up to be a group of 5 representative, and they just won like 10 games and had that amazing bowl game. And Arkansas just won 2 games. 2 games in the SEC. I think this is that classic upset I have to pick. Spunky G5 team who's got playoff hopes versus a measly SEC 2-win team who didn't win a game in the conference last season. I think this is the Cinderella run. I think that's where Hawaii wins that game. We're going Rainbow Warriors over Razorbacks. Oh, man. Okay. Now, this is tough because you got one of those first 4 matchups with Texas versus NC State here. And that's a tough one because I would obviously take Texas, but we don't even know if Texas is going to get past NC State. So we're going Texas. Okay. Yeah, we got to go Texas over BYU. BYU is going to be good. They're going to be very good again. LJ Martin's back, star running back. Bear Bachmeier's back. They just lost their top wide receiver. They don't have a great group of wide receivers in the room. Arch Manning and company is going to be even better than last season. And Texas only lost 3 games, finished 10-3, 11-3. What people thought Texas was going to be last season is probably more likely what they will become this season. I feel more confident about Arch going into this season than I did last season, which is weird to say, but the kid was nails down the stretch. He was lights out in the second half of the season. His accuracy got right. He figured it out, fixed some of the missed errant throws that he was experiencing earlier in the year. So Texas is going to be the real deal. I mean, they're ready to go. And yeah. Didn't Kennesaw State just join FBS? I think this was their their first full season in the FBS this past season. I have to take them over Gonzaga then, because I don't think Gonzaga has a football team. So we're going Kennesaw State. First FBS season. Oh, man, this is a fun one. Look at this. An ACC-SEC battle. That would be a really fun coaching battle of Mario Cristobal versus Eli Drinkowitz of Miami versus Missouri. I would love to see the chess match of Cristobal versus Drinkowitz, because that would be fun. Two exciting coaches, two great personalities there. You got to go Miami, though. They just brought in Darian Mensah. They're bringing back Mark Fletcher. They're bringing back Malachi Toney. I'm not sure who Missouri's starting quarterback is going to be. I don't know. It's either going to be Matt Zollers or Austin Simmons, and I don't know how comfortable I feel with starting either of those. Mensah is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I said this a few months ago. I thought he should have declared for the draft and come out now from Duke, because I thought he would probably be QB3. But he's coming to Miami. He wants to finish the job that Carson Beck started, and he might be what Cam Ward and Carson Beck are combined as a quarterback, if that makes sense. Like, if you can think of the highs of Cam Ward and the highs of Carson Beck, combine them into one QB, and it might be Darian Mensah low-key. So we'll see. Man, as bad as Purdue is as a football team, they would beat Queens. I doubt Queens has a football program. So we'll do Ryan Brown and Purdue Boilermakers moving on. But they're not going to beat Miami in the second round. So we'll just jump to that. Miami's beating them in the second round. Texas is also beating, again, I know it says NC State, in imagining it's Texas Longhorns with Arch Manning right now. So moving on to play Miami in a really good Sweet 16 matchup. I am keeping the Rainbow Warriors going because I can't pick Luke Fickell. I can't trust Wisconsin's offense to be anything this season. I think the magical Cinderella run of the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors is going to keep going here, and they're going to beat Wisconsin. Arizona, Noah Fafita over Utah State. Moving on. All right, man, these are some good games now. Arizona versus Hawaii in college football next season. That is like, because that's like an even game, I feel like. And that's like a 9-win Arizona team versus like a 11-win Hawaii team. Just for fun, I'm going to go Hawaii just to keep the magic running, just to keep the vibes going, because they're coming off such a good season. And I believe they have some of the highest odds among, I would have to double check their odds, but it's one of the highest odds among group of 5 teams to make the college football playoff next season. So keep them on your list of small teams that could potentially go undefeated. I would have to look at their schedule and who they're playing, but okay. Texas versus Miami. Wow. That's a epic matchup right there. Texas versus Miami would be really fun because you got Arch Manning versus Mensah, and you got all the studs that Texas has. I mean, all the guys they just brought. They Raleek Brown and the running backs they brought over. Cam Coleman, wide receiver. I don't know if I would take it to beat Miami, though. I'm still pretty high on my... I think I'm going Miami. I think I'm trusting Mensah and Fletcher and Toney to get it done. And their O-line, they're going to reload a defensive line. Cristobal is never going to have a bad team on a defensive line. There's no secret in that. They're going to reload. The only question will be how good can the O-line become? And last year, it was dominant. It was one of the best in the NCAA. If they can get the O-line right again, they will be dominant, and they will win the ACC again. So I'm going Miami over Texas in a close one. That would be maybe game of the tournament so far based on the games we've projected. And then I would have to keep it going. Hawaii, You've had a miracle run to the Elite Eight. We love it. We love you. But I can't take you to beat Miami in a college football playoff game next season. So, or just any college football game. This wouldn't even be the playoffs. This is all hypothetical anyways. All right. So there we go. That was a good game a couple months ago, the OSU-Miami game. Wow. All right. Moving down now, Michigan. Now, I know Michigan is not the powerhouse they just were a couple years ago in football, but hasn't been long, and they're not going away, and they got Bryce Underwood back, and they got Kyle Whittingham from Utah, John Henry Daly. They're going to be back. I believe they're 16th in my way too early, 16th, 17th. They're up there. They'll be top 20. I don't know if they're ready to make a playoff run, but they would dominate Howard in football or UMBC. So, this is fun. Georgia versus St. Louis. I love this. So we obviously know Georgia's winning that, and that sets up an epic second round game of a 1 versus 8. A previous playoff game from a few years ago where Georgia rolled over Michigan, just stomped them. So we'll see what happens. We got some blue bloods in this region. Look at the blue bloods. Look at the college football blue bloods in this Midwest region here. You got Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and now even Texas Tech is entering that territory of being just a name brand college football program. They brought in Brendan Sorsby for $5 million, Heisman contender quarterback from Cincinnati Bearcats. They're hoping Sorsby can be the guy to lead it all the way and get it done, win them a natty. They will not have the defensive line they had this season with Lee Hunter, guys like David Bailey, Romello Height, Jacob Rodriguez is gone. However, they are replacing them as best they can with linebackers such as Austin Romaine from Kansas State, who is honestly the best possible replacement you could find for Jacob Rodriguez. So, but man, this is setting up. This would actually be an epic college football game. Some of these, Michigan versus Georgia, and then Alabama, Texas Tech. I would pay big money to watch that next year. That might be game of the year. All right, we're going down. So moving down. Wow. So SMU is interesting because they're probably going to be ranked above Tennessee. Tennessee's solid, but they're kind of entering that 8-4 territory every season where they're just kind of an 8-4 school. And they're going to be like 20, ranked 20 to 25. I think I don't know who their starting quarterback is right now because they lost Joey Aguilar, and that's still up in the air. So Kevin Jennings is back for the Mustangs. Rhett Lashley is back for the Mustangs, and they just are coming off a playoff a season ago. I know Tennessee is too, but Tennessee had a way worse follow-up year in 2025 than SMU did. I think SMU will be back in contention for the ACC. I don't think Tennessee is going to compete for the SEC. I got to take SMU over them in the first round. All right, moving on. Virginia, who choked in the ACC championship game with Chandler Morris, who's currently suing the NCAA for a 7th year of eligibility. I don't know if he's going to get it, but I trust Virginia. I trust what they're building there. Some good running backs, a good ground game in the portal, and I believe they got Bo Pribula from Missouri. So that'll be their quarterback, and that sets up a good ACC battle of Virginia versus SMU. So look at that. All right, Kentucky versus Santa Clara now. I am trusting Will Stein. I don't know if you guys remember new head coach Will Stein, former offensive coordinator I believe he is the QB's coach at Oregon, a Dan Lanning coaching tree guy. So I'm super confident in what he's going to build at Kentucky. I thought it was the best coaching hire of the offseason. So I had them as my 25th ranked team in the way too early. Guys like Kenny Minchie transferred there, the backup from Notre Dame. People are praising him at the quarterback position. I think it's going to be a fun team. Give him a few years, see what he can build at UK, and I think they will be competing. I think he will turn Kentucky into like close to what Oregon is in the Big Ten. So just give him time. All right, Iowa State, who is always just a solid team. I know they lost everyone this past year, but they would still beat Tennessee State. They lost Matt Campbell, obviously went to Penn State as the coach, but Iowa State would still win. They're probably going to continue to be like a 7-5 team every year. All right, let's go back to this now. These are just some of the best college football games of the season if this would happen. Georgia's as good as anybody next year in the SEC. I would pick them right now to win the SEC championship. If I'm just picking conference winners, I'm going Georgia over Michigan. I think they would honestly maybe wipe the floor with Michigan if I'm being truthful next season. But I think Kirby is going for title number 3 at Georgia, and this could be the best team he's had since the last one to win it. So Stockton's fine. Gunnar Stockton's okay, but I think they got to get some better receivers. If you can get some wide receivers into the mix and develop them, some pass catchers, I think the sky's the limit for Georgia's offense because the defense was not what it was in years past this most recent year. That'll likely be much improved this next season. I believe it was after week 7, Kirby's points allowed, they subtract, it was cut in half, basically, after week 7. So made a ton of defensive adjustments, and I think that'll carry over into next season. All right. Now, Texas Tech versus Alabama is this would be an elite college football game next season where I think if you're just picking off name brand next year, you would go with Alabama, of course. However, I don't know how good Bama's going to be just based on their name alone because we don't know who's starting at quarterback. It's either going to be Austin Mack or Keon Russell. Ryan Williams is the only pass catcher returning. Questions on defense. They obviously have Bray Hubbard in the secondary, but questions on the defensive line, questions on the O-line, a lot of draft eligible prospects, a lot of guys going pro. And the run game has not been a factor in years past. They had no run game this past season. So they gotta find a ground game to help keep the offense humming and keep them on time. So I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going Texas Tech next year. If you're asking me right now who I think is the better college football team for 2026, it's the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And I think you'll see them ranked higher in every way too early preseason ranking above Alabama. Alabama was my 17th or 18th team. I don't know how they're going to win more than 8 games just other than the helmet. You just see the Alabama helmet, you just pick them to win 9 or 10 games, but that I got to see more. I got to see it on the field, and we got to see what Kalen DeBoer can actually do with them. So I'm going Texas Tech because I think they got the best running back duo in the country with Jacoby Williams and Cameron Dickey. You got Brendan Sorsby, which quarterback was the only weakness a season ago with Baron Morton. You might have won the national championship had you had better quarterback play. Brendan Sorsby, if he can provide that, you might be able to win the national championship this season. The defense won't be quite as good, but the offense will be even better. So think about how scary that could be. That's why I got to go Texas Tech over Bama, setting up a really good game. This was my national championship when the college football playoff bracket came out 2 months ago, but we obviously did not get that game. So, all right. Virginia versus SMU. I think Virginia's going to take a big step back. I would have SMU higher on my ACC ranking. I'm going SMU. Kentucky, Iowa State. I think Iowa State is going to have a rough year next year, basically, after the purge that their roster just had from Matt Campbell taking all his guys to Penn State. So we're going Will Stein and the new Kentucky team. I think he's going to get Kentucky to a bowl game, believe it or not. However, I think that's where their magic runs out. I have SMU higher than Kentucky in my way too early, so I got to go SMU. I know it says Miami. Just work with me here, people. And then this, I keep saying it sets up an epic college football game. Man, Georgia versus Texas Tech. Give me a second. I got to see who I had. Higher in my way too early rankings because I think I have to go with that because this would be a fantastic college football game this season. Garner Stockton versus Brendan Sorsby, Joey McGuire versus Kirby Smart. It would honestly be Clash of the Titans this season. So, give me 1 second. All right, I had Georgia at 4. I had Texas Tech at 7. So, by that fact, I have to go with Georgia beating Texas Tech, but it's close. That would be an epic game, maybe a shootout where Gunnar Stockton leads a game-winning drive potentially with a Nate Frazier touchdown running in for the win. By ranking alone, I had to give the edge to Georgia there, but that one is very close. Texas Tech's not far behind. It wouldn't surprise me if they played their best ball if Texas Tech could pull it off. But going with trusting Kirby Smart, and I'm going with Kirby Smart again to beat SMU and Rhett Lashlee. A great run for the SMU Mustangs, but unfortunately comes to an end here. So there we go. Georgia makes the Final Four. All right, last region now, South region. Florida Gators. I'll give you a win this time, Florida, but you might not get out of the second round. Again, I'm not sure what John Summerall, new coach there, I heard he's still making them earn their Gator logos, but I am hoping Florida can get out of this funk they're in as a football program, because I think college football is better when they're good and better when they are at the top of the SEC, and I love Florida's program. I like watching their team, so I hope Florida can get out of this, but they've become a basketball school. It's kind of clear they've now become a basketball school with 3 championships in the last 25 years. So, and going for a 4th currently. So, Clemson, Iowa, man, this would have been a gross game this past season. Clemson versus Iowa in 2025. You would have had to pay me a lot of money to watch that game, because I wouldn't have done it. The Hawkeyes offense versus Cade Klubnik and the Clemson Tigers offense that was just brutal this past season. I will give Clemson the benefit of the doubt for next season, because I think it was just a one-off, one-year funk for them, and I think Dabo is going to get them going again, but it wasn't going to be with that team they had and the roster they had last year. I will give Dabo the benefit of the doubt because he's a two-time national champion, but he's got work to do at Clemson. They can't fall behind, because I know fans and donors are getting antsy about Dabo adapting to NIL era. So we'll see if he does it, but he's running out of time. And I'm not sure how much I trust Vizina, the new quarterback there, allegedly starting. So we'll see. Chris Vizina, I think it is. So. All right, Vanderbilt versus McNeese. Well, now that Vandy is a football school and they got Jared Curtis, number 1 quarterback, coming in, we're going Vandy. We're going Vandy. I'm sorry, Nebraska fans. I'm sorry to do this to Nebraska fans. I got to take the Troy Trojans to beat you in the first round. I have to. Troy is that Dragon Slayer. Troy almost beat Clemson in August, September, which ended up not being as impressive, but they were in that game. They were beating Clemson at halftime. Troy has a great season. They're always one of those group of 5 teams that wins like 9 or 10 games. They're always in position to compete and possibly knock off a giant. And I see them as the biggest giant killer in this tournament. All right, North Carolina versus VCU. I don't think VCU is a football team. So North Carolina, Bill Belichick by default, but I don't love having to pick Belichick there. He might slip up, but the opponent may not even show up, so it might be okay. Illinois versus Penn. So they don't have Luke Altmaier, but Illinois has established itself as a respectable program in the Big Ten and in college football as a whole. QB battle. I'm not QB battle for next season. However, extremely well coached, well balanced team. I really liked Luke Altmaier there last year. Obviously, he's entering pros now, but Illinois has established themselves as a solid team. They're going to be an 8-9 win team every year now. Texas A&M, 10 seed. We got to go Texas A&M here. Lost in the first round of the playoffs as the 7 seed to Miami, who obviously went on to lose in the national championship. I wonder how far A&M would have gone had they not lost that first game. And I do wonder if they'll be better and back and better than ever next season. I love Mike Elko. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. He's one of my favorite coaches in the country. I love his defensive identity and the defense they built there with Cash Towel. I know Howell will obviously be gone, but bring a lot of studs back. Mario Craver will be back. Marcel Reed, quarterback, will be back. So I do think I will have them in my actual college football playoff when I eventually make those brackets. But Houston versus Idaho. Connor Wegman. Houston's going to be good next year in football. I know they're a basketball school, but Houston is going to be good in college football next year. I repeat that. Houston will be a top 20 team. I have them 19th in my way too early rankings with Connor Wegman. You got Mekhi Hughes, the running back transfer from Oregon and Tulane, who is an absolute star at Tulane. Didn't play much at Oregon. Hoping to have a bounce back year for the Cougars this season. Cougars are going to compete for the Big 12. I'll say it right now. They may end up placing second to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game if I had to make a pick for it right now. But all right, we are going back up top here. Clemson versus Florida. Now, this is just like battle of disappointments, I feel like here. I don't love either of these teams, but given Clemson's success the past decade versus Florida's success, I'm trusting Dabo Swinney more in one game versus the Florida Gators. But that is like a disappointment bowl. It just feels like. But we'll give Tigers the benefit of the doubt over the Gators because they've just won so much more over the past decade than Florida has. I apologize to Trevor Sigma on that. All right. Vanderbilt versus Troy. Now, this is another one this will be a fun game here because Vandy obviously lost Pavia and Stowers, but the recruiting class they brought in and Brent Lee is just the man. Great coach, established a culture there. He literally called his shot and he did it. Troy, I want to pick you here. I really do, but I got to go Vandy. The Commodore, the Doors have established themselves as a real threat to the college football playoff in future seasons. They're just getting started. They're just getting started down there in Nashville. All right, Illinois versus North Carolina. Now, I don't think either of these teams are going to be ranked next season or really compete in their respective conferences. However, the Tar Heels are way worse than the Fighting Illini, so I gotta go Illinois in that win. UNC win like 4 games. I think Belichick will be better in year 2, but I don't know how good they're going to be long term. So I just got to go Illinois. Houston versus A&M is actually the best game of this region now because these are probably the two best football teams in this respective region here. However, I think Texas Tech is a top 10 team entering the season. I have them 10th in my way too early, and I have Houston 19th. So again, going off that, I got to go with Marcel Reed. I think the Aggies get it done. I would take them to beat the Houston Cougars and Connor Wegman in a game, but that would be a really good college football game. I can't lie. That would be a great game. So A&M wins, and they move on to defeat Illinois as well. And yeah. Vanderbilt would beat Clemson. I would pick Vanderbilt to beat Clemson. It would be close. Clemson, that's where the Dabo magic runs out. I think Vanderbilt has passed Clemson in terms of like at this moment in time. I think Vanderbilt is going to be better next season than Clemson will. Clemson's not going away, but Dabo's got some work to do, and he's got to build the trust back up in the Clemson fan base and the Clemson faithful because they're doubting him and they want him to do more in the portal, and he's just not doing enough. So we'll see what happens, but Clemson's on the verge of falling into irrelevancy pretty soon if they don't make a playoff here, probably next year. So, all right, battle of SEC in the regional final here. I'm going A&M. I don't have Vanderbilt's gonna be good. They'll be good again. And again, they're established themselves in the SEC. They're no longer the joke of the conference. They're no longer a slouch in the SEC. However, A&M I got ranked. I don't have Vanderbilt ranked, so A&M gets the edge. All right, good Final Four. Now, what a Final Four here. We got 2 SEC teams, 1 Big Ten, and 1 ACC. Ohio State versus Texas A&M, and Miami versus Georgia. Man, this would have been the Carson Beck game. If only we got this. We were so close. We were so close to getting Carson Beck versus Georgia, which would have been a phenomenal game this season, but we end up with Ole Miss with the upset over Georgia. So that game proved to be amazing too. So now we get Miami versus Georgia. I think I am going Georgia. Yes, I have Georgia 4th, and I have Miami 11th in my way too early. I have to give the edge to Kirby Smart here. I would have picked Miami to beat them last year, though. For the record, with Beck at QB, I would have picked Miami because he's just got that kind of mental edge over Georgia, and he would have beat him. But with Mensa, I'm not as sold. I think Georgia beats Miami this season because I don't think the Hurricanes will be quite as good. I think losing Bain and Mesidor hurts a little bit. Those dudes, those pass rushers like that don't grow on trees. And we'll see how when they go like first round of the NFL draft here in a couple weeks. Ruben Bain, players like that don't grow on trees, and they're going to see what a loss of him looks like on the defensive line. But another good run for Mario Cristobal, getting to a Final Four, not getting it done, though, against the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart gets the best of them. Over here on the left side, Ohio State versus A&M. I've got Ohio State second overall in my way too early. Like I said, A&M is 10th. I think this will be an awesome game. I think Marshall Reed would put up some points, and this will be a fun shootout. But I think Julian Sayin is just ridiculous, man. He is lights out. He is so good. This is setting up a fun game from a couple years ago where it was OSU versus Georgia. That game wasn't the national championship, but we all kind of know it was the national championship. So Georgia won that one. What was it, 44-41 or 43-44, something like that. Either way, it was the missed kick. Going into next season, I don't know if this will be my national championship pick, but it could be when it's all said and done. If this were the two teams, right now, I would pick the Ohio State Buckeyes to beat the Georgia Bulldogs in the national championship game in a college football bracketology bracket. So there you go. Ohio State over Georgia is my college football playoff March Madness bracketology pick. I know that was the dumbest episode ever, but there you go, guys. That is who I would pick if this was a college football playoff bracket for next season. That's my Final Four. That's not bad. That could be it. Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, and A&M is not a bad Final Four to pick in a college football playoff bracket right now, and I could see those teams all making it when it's all said and done. So, again, appreciate you guys listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I know that was like probably the most silly episode you could ever imagine, but this is something I've wanted to do for years now, and I was never able to and didn't have my own podcast, so now I can do this. So that was fun. Hope you enjoyed. Again, I may do a separate bracketology episode where I'm actually just picking them for my March Madness bracket. I've got Arizona winning that one. So I've got Arizona cutting down the nets over St. John's in my actual college basketball bracket. But here, Ohio State, you're the champion for the college football hypothetical March Madness that I just made up in my head. So appreciate you guys watching The Point After with Mitch Kaiser. Hope you enjoyed everything. So thanks for listening to The Point After with Mitch Kaiser. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.